Hello and welcome to our special live coverage of South Korea's cabinet meeting. In just a few moments, President Lee Jae-myung will be presiding over the meeting to review and approve next year's budget proposal. He is expected to lay out the overall framework and key priorities of the budget, reportedly set at around 500 trillion Korean won, or roughly 360 billion US dollars. Now, this is roughly a 7% increase from this year. The government says it will ramp up spending to help keep the economy moving. The president, who returned home yesterday after his 6-day trip to the United States and Japan, will also likely give details on the outcomes of the recent summit meetings. President Lee's first face-to-face meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump in Washington, D.C. this week is seen as having laid the groundwork for trilateral cooperation, while opening the door to talks with North Korea. Now it appears the meeting's about to start. We'll come back right afterwards.
The president will give his opening remarks. The 39th cabinet meeting will commence. Well, thanks to the people's cheering, my visit to Japan and U.S. was successful and came back home. Thank you very much for your applause. And your advice, people sparing no advice to me, was such a big help. Thank you very much. With the spirit of Team Korea on the ground, we were a one team, and I would like to thank all the business leaders and the media for that. Diplomacy is what people do, and for national interest, we have to pour our hearts into it. Based on our achievements this time, we are going to uphold our interests, also extend to other countries what we can do in help. And for us to continue with our successful visit outcomes, it has to be a bipartisan support that is needed, and I hope that we can come together and muster our strengths. For the ruling and opposition party, I would like to make a meeting as soon as possible where we can all come together and explain the outcomes. In terms of the budget proposal, at the moment, the economy, the innovation that is led by the new technology, and also improvement in the economics are the two agendas that we have to deal with. And for the next year's budget proposal that we're going to discuss together during this meeting will be a priming water for us to cooperate and to bring about economic growth. And we are at a very timely and very critical juncture where such cooperation is necessary. Even if we don't have seed to sow, it is a common sense that even in those times, we have to borrow the seed to sow for next harvest. And I would like to ask all of you to cooperate, to come together, and also for the National Assembly to cooperate so that we can make this happen. In terms of the Yellow Envelope Act that was passed the National Assembly, I know there are a lot of worries. And this was a long-awaited wish of the labor community, and the actual purpose for it is to facilitate the mutual respect of company and labor unions, and therefore the two parties should have to come together to the table with a respect for each other. And I would also like to ask the labor circle to do this in cooperation. Our labor policies has to be in line with the international standards, and I hope that the people on the ground can work together towards this direction. I also want to share a good news. During a policeman, even though he was on leave, he was able to arrest a criminal for voice phishing. And it shows that public officials should execute their duty even when they are on leave or wherever they are. And therefore, I believe that this is a very best case that could be shown exactly that sentiment. And I am going to make sure that this policeman gets a remuneration for such his good deeds. For public goods, things that matter to so many people is what our public officials do, and that is why such public officials should take responsibility and have accountability, and they take out their roles very seriously. And that is why this policeman's loyalty to the people that he has shown is so important. And I hope that we all do this in the future. Thank you very much.
Now, for those of you just tuning in, that was our live coverage of South Korea's cabinet meeting where President Lee Jae-myung addressed his recent trips to the United States and Japan. Meanwhile, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is planning to travel to China next week to attend a military parade in Beijing that marks the 80th anniversary of Japan's surrender in World War II. While other leaders, including Russia's, are also reportedly set to take part in the event, all eyes are on what Kim's intentions are. Our Park Won-woo tells us more.
Kim Jong-un's unprecedented participation in a multinational event. Confirmed by North Korea and China on Thursday, Kim's set to attend Beijing's military parade on September 3rd, celebrating the 80th anniversary of China's Victory Day.
China and North Korea are friendly neighbors connected by mountains and rivers. We warmly welcome General Secretary Kim Jong-un to come to China.
Kim's attendance will be his 5th visit to China as North Korean leader, but the first time any North Korean leader will have attended the event since 1959, and his first at a multilateral event. So what's behind this move?
Kim has been participating actively in bilateral meetings, but this time it seems like he's showing off as a leader while saying the North isn't isolated diplomatically.
The event is expected to draw 26 world leaders or high-level representatives, including Russian President Vladimir Putin. That means leaders of North Korea, China, and Russia will gather in one place for the first time.
Common interest that is anti-American. So they definitely talk about the United States and they criticize United States. And at the same time, they are going to trying to enhance their cooperation among three countries with some other Chinese-friendly countries too.
Also attending the parade will be South Korea's National Assembly Speaker Woo Won-sik, representing Seoul. Speculation remains over whether Kim will avoid Woo. But if they get to meet, it would be the first between the two Koreas under the Lee Jae-myung administration, and first since December 2018. Park Won-woo, Arirang News.
So as we just heard, the North Korean leader will be traveling to China in what will be a landmark visit as China has been pushing for a new Beijing-led world order. For more on this, we're joined by Professor Brian Myers, Professor of International Studies at Dongsa University. Professor Myers, thanks for joining us this morning.
Sure thing.
So Kim Jong-un is expected to join Putin and other leaders in China next week to attend a military parade there to mark Victory Day or the 80th anniversary of Japan's surrender in World War II. What's behind China's decision to invite the North Korean leader, and could this serve as an opportunity for North Korea, China, and Russia to strengthen their cooperation?
Well, it would have been weird if China had not invited Kim. He's a friendly leader of an allied neighboring country, and his very own grandfather, Kim Il-sung, fought against the Japanese in a Chinese uniform. So there's a shared tradition there. For years now, the Western world has been saying that China and North Korea are drifting apart, but I think that's wishful thinking. There are differences here, but they're getting along a lot better than some countries in NATO are. So I think the parade will be more than just a show of unity, it's also going to be an occasion for deepening it. Now, Putin and Kim do take a more confrontational stance toward America than Xi Jinping, who I think is much more interested in reaching an agreement with President Trump. But even so, all three leaders share a commitment to defending national sovereignty against the forces of globalism. So I expect them to put their time in Beijing to good use by discussing various forms of cooperation, military, economic, whatever.
Right, and this is believed to be Kim Jong-un's first international level meeting with other world leaders, right? What might North Korea hope to gain from participating in the event like this in China?
Well, you know, it's going to be weird seeing him at a multilateral summit, especially for the North Korean people who are used to him being the center of attention in one-on-one summits. But if Kim has decided to attend, it's because he knows that the optics are going to reassure the North Korean people that their country has really arrived on the world stage. The decades of efforts to isolate it have failed completely. I don't think Kim is going to use the occasion for serious diplomacy because he likes to play China and Russia off against each other a bit. And he can't do that if Putin is in town at the same time. But this whole display in Beijing is meant to send a message to the world, and not just to the US and NATO, but also to the growing number of countries who want an alternative to the US dollar, that this anti-globalist bloc, which North Korea is a part of, is united, it's thriving, and it's not going to back down.
I see. And you know, South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung recently met with President Donald Trump in Washington, and Trump said he wants to meet North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un this year. And President Lee also asked Trump to play the role of peacemaker, saying Trump was the only person who can actually solve tensions between the two Koreas. So how likely is it that Trump will be able to bring North Korea back to the negotiating table?
Well, let's put it this way. If Kim does come back to the table, it's not going to be because of President Trump's personal charm or outreach this time. It's going to be because the United States drops the demand for denuclearization in advance in secret negotiations on the working level. Otherwise, I think Kim is not going to do it. He's not going to risk another media circus that could end as badly as the last one did in Hanoi 6 years ago. And I don't see how a breakthrough can take place so long as North Korea is continuing to fight against Ukraine. Because Kim is not going to abandon Putin during a war that is now going pretty well for both of those allies, just to get a deal with America that could fall through at any time. America's broken a lot of big agreements with Russia and Iran. And of course, America has many reasons not to trust Kim either. North Korea has a pretty bad record of keeping its promises. So I don't think things will even begin to change substantially until we see a Trump-Putin deal in regard to Ukraine.
I see, and there wasn't any joint document or joint press briefing or anything like that following the summit between Presidents Lee Jae-myung and Trump. And the EU administration still faces a number of pending negotiations with Washington, and that includes the cost sharing of U.S. troops in Korea. How do you expect this issue to play out?
Not very well. You know, the absence of a document or joint statement in Washington was a bad sign. And we're learning more and more these days about the terrible deal that the European Union got from Trump. And we're hearing from the Europeans, there was almost no negotiation. America just pretty much dictated the terms. And the Europeans were so desperate for American military protection that they just accepted everything. Now, if those reports are credible, they indicate that South Korea is going to be in a pretty bad position too. So that nice handwritten note that President Lee received in the White House doesn't mean all that much. South Korea remains economically dependent on the United States. It needs that nuclear umbrella as well. So although I don't expect President Lee to accept all of President Trump's demands, I think America is going to get most of what it wants. And that means that some pain is coming for South Korea in regard to trade and in regard to cost sharing for American troops.
See, we'll have to see how that unfolds. All right, Professor Myers, thank you so much for your insight today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Strategic flexibility of U.S. troops in Korea and extended deterrence, the term used to describe Washington's nuclear umbrella commitment, can go hand in hand. Now, that's the view of U.S. Senator Andy Kim, the first Korean American in the Senate. He says extended deterrence must be enforced on the Korean Peninsula, while strategic flexibility allows the United States to expand U.S. forces Korea's role beyond deterring North Korea. That means the USFK could respond to regional crisis, from China to the Taiwan Strait. But the issue is sensitive in Seoul with concerns over relations with Beijing. Kim also rejected any unilateral troop cuts, stressing that Seoul must be consulted as a strategic ally. Over in Ukraine, Russia launched a massive drone and missile strike on Kyiv, killing at least 21 people. The White House says President Donald Trump is not happy about the news, saying neither side is ready to end the war themselves. Our Lee Seung-jae has the details.
At least 21 people, including 4 children, have been killed in a massive Russian drone and missile strike on Kyiv, marking the second largest attack to date. Dozens more were wounded, with officials warning the toll could rise. Powerful explosions shook the city throughout the early hours of Thursday, damaging buildings in 33 locations across the city's 10 districts. Among the sites hit were the headquarters of the European Union mission to Ukraine and the British Council. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky condemned the assault as proof that Moscow has no intention of pursuing peace, saying Russian President Vladimir Putin is choosing ballistics over real steps toward peace.
In Washington, we heard that Putin is apparently ready for the end of the war and for a meeting at the level of leaders and the resolution of key issues. But he is choosing ballistics instead of any real steps towards peace.
International reaction was also swift, with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen saying she was outraged by Russia's actions, noting the EU's delegation's building in Kyiv had also been damaged.
I'm outraged by the attack on Kyiv, also hitting our EU offices. This was the deadliest drone and missile attack on the capital since July. And as you can see behind me on the screen, it was an attack also on our delegation.
The attack on Kyiv came just 2 weeks after U.S. President Donald Trump met with Vladimir Putin in Alaska to discuss ending the conflict. On Thursday, the White House said President Trump was not happy when he learned of the strikes.
He was not happy about this news, but he was also not surprised. These are 2 countries that have been at war for a very long time.
According to the White House press secretary, neither side is ready to end the war themselves, adding that Trump will comment on the matter later. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And in September, U.S. President Donald Trump will deliver his first speech to the United Nations since returning to office. White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt said on Thursday that President Trump will speak at the UN General Assembly on September 23rd. The UN General Assembly, held every September in New York, is attended by leaders from 193 countries to discuss a range of issues from climate change to international peace and democracy. President Lee Jae-myung could attend the session, which would also be his first since inauguration. The United Nations interim force in Lebanon, known as UNIFIL, will officially end its mission at the end of next year, bringing to a close nearly half a century of operations. The UN Security Council on Thursday unanimously adopted a resolution to conclude UNIFIL's peacekeeping role in southern Lebanon. UNIFIL's mandate will end on December 31st, 2026, followed by a 1-year drawdown and withdrawal through 2027. This also means that South Koreans participating as part of the Dongmyeong unit will also withdraw. UNIFIL was first deployed in March 1978 under Security Council Resolutions 425 and 426, established to oversee peace and stability in Lebanon. And a special counsel team will indict former First Lady Kim Keon Hee on Friday, making her the first former or current First Lady in South Korea's history to face trial under detention. Kim, who was arrested earlier this month, faces allegations of stock manipulation, interference in party nominations, and influence peddling, which she denies. It's also the first time in the country's constitutional history that both the former president and his wife stand trial while both are in custody. Her husband, former President Yoon Suk-yeol, is currently detained on charges of leading an insurrection after declaring martial law in December. He was also the first South Korean president to be arrested while in office.
Good morning, I'm Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. Starting in the United States, where investigations into Wednesday's deadly shooting at the Annunciation Catholic School in Minneapolis revealed evidence indicating the shooter was obsessed with killing children. On Thursday, officials announced that the gunman, identified as 23-year-old Robin Westman, was a former student of the school. Investigators uncovered writings and expressions demonstrating Westman's plan, mental state, and a fascination with previous mass school shooters. The acting U.S. attorney for Minnesota stated that Westman was obsessed with the idea of killing children, and authorities noted hate-filled messages targeting almost every community imaginable, including Catholics, Jews, and even President Trump. The shooting is being investigated as both an anti-Catholic hate crime and an act of domestic terrorism. Westman fired 116 rifle rounds and multiple shotgun blasts through locked church windows during a back-to-school mass. 2 children were killed while 18 people were injured. Westman also died from a self-inflicted gun wound. In Europe, the United Kingdom, France, and Germany have launched a 30-day process to reimpose United Nations sanctions on Iran over its nuclear program violations. On Thursday, they formally notified the UN Security Council, triggering the so-called snapback mechanism, a diplomatic shortcut that could reinstate sanctions if Iran does not comply within 30 days. The move targets Iran's nuclear enrichment, arms transfers, and related financial activities. While this measure is being implemented, EU ministers maintain that diplomatic channels are still open and they're prepared to negotiate a renewed agreement to prevent the imposition of full sanctions. France emphasized the importance of diplomatic solutions, and Germany urged Iran to re-engage with the International Atomic Energy Agency. The United States and Israel praised the European action, describing it as a responsible step toward accountability. Iran, meanwhile, condemned the move as illegal and baseless, asserting that it would respond appropriately. In the United States, Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook filed a lawsuit against President Donald Trump on Thursday, challenging his unprecedented attempt to fire her from the Fed. Cook argues that Trump has no legal authority to remove her without cause, a protection outlined in the Federal Reserve Act. Trump's dismissal decision stemmed from allegations of mortgage fraud from 2021, which were raised before her Fed appointment. Cook maintains these claims do not meet the legal threshold required for removal and are unrelated to her duties. A preliminary court hearing is scheduled for Friday. American pop superstar Ariana Grande has officially announced the Eternal Sunshine Tour, her first major concert tour in 6 years, in support of her 2024 album Eternal Sunshine. The 2-time Grammy winner made the announcement on Thursday by sharing a poster with tour dates and locations on her social media. A teaser for the event was released the day before, which included a caption that read, "See you next year." The tour will kick off on June 6, 2026, with back-to-back shows at the Oakland Arena in California and wrap up in London. Ticket sales will begin with pre-sales on September 9th, followed by general admission on September 10th.
There was Sudden and heavy rain in the capital area this morning on the way to work. Sorry to see some people rushing around without an umbrella. Isolated rain is in the forecast until this evening in the central regions, parts of Jeollado provinces and Jeju Island, with 5 to 60 millimeters in the forecast along with thunderstorms. It's already the last workday of August, but the air feels incredibly muggy outside. We saw the return of a tropical night overnight, and highs will easily go above 30 degrees Celsius in many parts of Korea. For a closer look, Seoul gets up to 31 degrees, Gwangju at 34. Daegu and Gyeongju will be steamy hot, topping out at 35 degrees Celsius this afternoon. The muggy heat will continue through the weekend with frequent showers, especially in the western regions. Rain is then expected to gradually spread nationwide on Sunday night, but frequent rain will try hard to turn things cooler. Make sure to keep an umbrella handy.
Now that's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.